Welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Frank.
And today's episode is episode number 61, and we're talking cruise line loyalty programs and whether or not you should be loyal to them. Let's jump into it.
Well, I'm back from Utopia of the Seas, Michael. It's good to be back. Not always good to be back from a cruise, but good to be back talking about cruising with you. There's been a lot of news going on over the last couple of weeks, so we'll start out with the big one. Hurricane Ernesto has kind of swept through. There was definitely some rearranging of itineraries. The biggest one they were watching out for was Bermuda, because it was looking like Bermuda was going to be in the direct path. So I know that there were some Liberty of the Seas cruises that were adjusted. I believe some MSC cruises. And we actually have a client, Brandon, who will be sailing on, shout out Brandon, on MSC coming up in the fall. And I was personally worried about it, whether or not that, Bermuda was going to get absolutely smashed by this hurricane, because it is a major cruise port. And actually Brandon's going on like a 7-night MSC cruise that we booked for him, but it's 4 days in Bermuda, which is really cool. But it would have been a really big bummer had it gotten smacked by this hurricane. And luckily, I think it was only a Category 1 when it hit Bermuda. But it's just one of those things, we talk about it a few times on this podcast. We did an episode last year about cruising during hurricane season. You can get insurance and things. But at the end of the day, I think everyone just has to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to cruises in August and September, because you just never know what the weather's going to look like. And we're going on Icon in a few weeks, and it could totally be readjusted. We're planning on going to the Eastern Caribbean, and I saw Icon got pushed over to the Western Caribbean recently. And so, you just never know what the weather this time of year, but just definitely something that was in the news. And for those that do have cruises coming up in the next couple of months, could easily be something that happens to use it. So just something to look out for on the cruise website. And there's we followed some of the meteorologists for some of the major cruise lines. Are always posting on Twitter, keeping you up to date on those changes for itineraries. So
the next piece of news we have today deals with Princess Cruise Lines. They've kind of re-enhanced their premium package, right? Now, for about $90 a day, you get things like unlimited drinks, which for you bourbon drinkers out there, they even have Woodford's private selection as a part of it, unlimited high-speed Wi-Fi, and unlimited dining. So, overall, for $90, Frank, that sounds like a really good deal to enhance, like we said, your cruise option with some of these different add-ons that you may already be thinking of adding.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like on another cruise line, like Royal or even Carnival, like that's probably a lot cheaper than what you would pay to add each of those 3 items on if you wanted the Wi-Fi, dining, and drink package. It's going to be probably more than $90 a day, so very good value from Princess on those items. Last but not least, this was a cool one that I found this week, but Virgin announced the Marvelous Voyages, which basically is like their way of seeing the 2026. In August, they're going to be having a solar eclipse in Europe, where you can actually see, I believe it's 98 to 100% of the solar eclipse. And they've got 2 different sailings. I believe it's a 12-night and a 15-night. One's going more towards the Eastern Mediterranean, and then one's more Western, Ireland area as well. So they are bringing astronomers on board for this, and then doing special food, souvenirs, entertainment. That's kind of all for this astrology kind of theme around the solar eclipse. So it's actually kind of just a cool little thing that if you are into the solar system and you're into astronomy, this may be a really cool opportunity to kind of see something and learn something. I don't know. I feel like cruise ships back in the day had a lot more opportunities, from what I've heard, to teach you things on board. And I think this could be a really cool, almost seminar at sea type thing, where you get to learn more about something. Also, they're going to do parties and things like under the stars. So really going with the theme of, the solar eclipses that are happening. So pretty cool. I don't know a ton about astrology, but this just kind of was interesting to me when I saw it. So
yeah, I was about to say, the solar eclipses are always pretty cool, just seeing them here in the States when they happen every so many years. But yeah, like you said, the fact that they're bringing on astronomers on board to kind of, like you said, help teach you, seems like a real cool experience. Especially also, like you said, you can go over, it's going around Ireland and the Med. So, kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone if you're into astronomy and all that. Well, Frank, so before we kind of dive into today's topic, last week our episode was our YouTube live stream recap from when you were on Utopia of the Seas a couple weekends ago now at this point. We really haven't talked much about kind of how the rest of the trip went, so I figured today we'd kind of just start the episode kind of hearing how the rest of the trip went, anything you did, whether I know you said you were doing the Royal Railway, Hideaway Beach Club. Yeah, how was the rest of your trip?
Dude, it was really awesome. Now, I will just caveat this because we went live on Instagram. We showed the sail away party. That was probably like the peak party. I think like people were commenting on that, like, this ship isn't really for me. And I think that the marketing is so heavy on like the world's biggest weekend. It's going to be this party. And like, besides boarding the ship, and there's like a little bit more music than the promenade, seems like a little louder. The sail away party was definitely a bit more bumping. They had like a party crew on board for that. I mean, besides that, like the sailaways and stuff, if you wanted to go to the parties, they were all at like midnight and 1 a.m. Like legit, like the frat party was starting at like 1 a.m. So for me, I didn't make it on this cruise. So that's going to be something that I, have to do on a future cruise. I was definitely asleep at that time. But that's just to say, like, if you are like, hey, I'm nervous about booking this cruise because I'm worried that it's going to be too much of a party scene for me, I don't think that that's the case. Like, you can totally escape it. Like, even for the sail away, we could have been in the solarium and we would have been fine. Like, the solarium is absolutely massive. You would have had the ship is just beautiful, right? Like, it's so beautiful. I wouldn't let like the party scene or what they're even showing you on Instagram or on their commercials like deter you from booking this cruise or even being like, is it for kids? No, it's totally like a family friendly cruise line. Even like the sail away party, it was like, Royal Caribbean's version of like a party, right? So it's not too crazy. In terms of the food on board and everything like that, I mean, the Giovanni's looking over the boardwalk was spectacular, right? So we got to sit outside and really just enjoy the dining out there. It was so cool. I know you're right. Like last time we talked about it, wish it was looking over Central Park, but it is still really cool that you can eat outside and kind of be up high and look at the ocean. Because I don't think that like on most Oasis class ships, you can do that from a specialty dining. So pretty cool there. Royal Railway was amazing. Probably one of the highlights of the trip. Even Mom and I both being really food people. Like we love food, love to eat. Dude, those baked beans were just like, I mean, they're fart and dart beans. I know we joked about them. Ridiculous. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like Indian spices. It's like very like interesting flavors. Like you could tell they like put like cumin and things. Like they were really, really good. And then the acting and stuff was super cool. Like people were running back and forth, and it was just like Mom was a part of it. She was like the deputy, so they like engaged her. Everyone kind of had like a role or like was called out in the train, a car, like something. Like they kind of, I'm not going to give everything away because I want people to book it, but they definitely like engaged every single person in the car pretty much as like a joke. So that's pretty cool. Dude, I will say one of the biggest things, Pesky Parrot is like ridiculous. Like I posted on Facebook in like a Utopia of the Seas group this week, and I'm like dreaming of going back on and getting one of those peanut butter pina coladas again. Oh my gosh. Like it was just absolutely delicious. We actually are making some vlogs. So if you're interested in like seeing the day by day and seeing more of the information and like our opinions as we're eating food and trying things and our opinions on things with Mom and I on board, you can definitely go to Cruise Conversations podcast on YouTube and click the subscribe button. We're going to be dropping some of those videos over the next couple of weeks. But I mean, dude, that drink was ridiculous. And when you drank it, like it was so cold, it literally tasted like peanut butter. So good. And then obviously going on the peanut butter theme, we did eat lunch at Mason Jar, which was really good. And then we went there for late night drinks on the last night and hung out with Brian James and his trio. That was really fun. There was a cougar that was trying to get me out on the dance floor, which was hilarious. But other than that, it was a really, really great time. And the peanut butter and jelly old fashioned was exactly what you described, like super good. And the music they were playing, Luke Combs. They were playing, we requested a song. They're like, what do you want to hear? We gave them song suggestions. And yeah, that bar it's crazy because they don't really like advertise it, which is kind of nice. Like if you've been on Wonder, you kind of know, but like, I think only one of the 3 nights I saw like live music in the Mason Jar. Like I think the rest of it was kind of just like low key, but it was, the third night obviously it was packed. Like all the rocking chairs were full of people. The bar, I think the bartenders in that bar were like by far the best. I think they work with Brian and they kind of like all stayed together. They were singing his songs and dancing as they made your drinks. And yeah, you could tell like out of all the people on the ship, like those people like were really, really happy to be there. So, I mean, nothing really bad to say. I love Azumi in the park. We got to eat like a sushi takeout one of the days. The ship was it was beautiful. We did see the aqua show, which was great. I mean, just like every other aqua show, really, really good. All the diving and everything was really cool. And then Hideaway was great. I do think that they turned down the music on at Hideaway Beach at Coco Cay. Wasn't not as loud by the beach, which was really good. So I think they probably got that feedback from a lot of people because, I was talking to John this weekend and he was like, same thing. It was too loud and we didn't really get a chance to relax. And I think that they heard that feedback. And I don't know if they're looking at like the demographic that's going to be there that day, but they definitely weren't playing like the music as loud and they're playing a variety of music there. So yeah, overall, it was a really, really great trip. I'm looking forward to going back on with Scotty, but it was a really great time and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah, I mean, overall, Frank, sounds like a great trip, like you said, to experience the ship pretty much right in its first couple weeks. Like you said, which was the first for you. And it's cool that, like you said, that hopefully they heard some of that feedback at Hideaway Beach Clubs. Like I said, that was probably my only feedback too from it was the music levels, especially around the beach area. So glad that they fixed that too. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait to experience the ship someday and experience some of those new venues too. Like you said, whether Pesky Parrot, Azumi in the Park, the Royal Railway, all of them seem like a great time. Well, let's kind of transition into our main topic for the day now, Frank. Like we said, we're talking loyalty programs. This is actually a topic we've had written down for probably almost since the start. Yeah, probably almost last year as a topic to do. And we've always kind of just brushed over it because other stuff's come up. But yeah, I mean, loyalty programs, every cruise line has them, right? They're all different. I mean, we're going to kind of break down some of these and kind of talk about whether you should be loyal, shouldn't be loyal to a certain cruise line. And, obviously, if you have been loyal for a while, it may be a little bit easier or a little bit harder to switch to other lines, which, we'll kind of talk with you because obviously you're, pretty far along with Royal Caribbean as a whole.
Yeah, Michael, I think one of the things as we go through this topic, like you said, we've had it on the list for a while. One of the things that's hard for me is that I am, like you said, I've been with Royal for a while and it's tough, right? So I've got like 80 nights. Like I've talked about not having to buy a drink package. This was actually my first cruise, like I said, that I've not cruised I've cruised and not gotten the drink package. So this is the first time that I was on Utopia, weekend long cruise, and I didn't even really feel like I needed it. So I saved a lot of money, like, $300 personally, not having to get that. So that was a huge perk. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Yeah. But what makes it difficult is obviously that we had this podcast. We want to try new things. You're trying MSC this year. I'm trying Virgin. We want to keep trying new cruise lines just to, bring perspective on it. But it does get tough. Like you said, once you continue growing in some of these, the perks add up, right? Carnival starts treating you really well, or Royal starts treating you really well. You're like, oh, well, maybe I'll just keep going with that one. So we want to talk about that. What are the pros and cons of staying loyal or maybe trying something new? And then just for those that are not familiar or maybe new to cruising, let me just talk a little bit also about like how these work. So if you are not maybe familiar with cruising, so hotels or flights, it's usually on like an annual cycle. So it resets every year, whether you're gold. And then if you don't ever go to the Marriott or you don't ever fly American Airlines, like you lose that status, right? With the cruise lines, for the most part, it is like forever, right? So if you only go on 5 cruises your whole life, then those 5 cruises still count for your loyalty, which is really, really nice. So that is one thing. And then the points are per person. So even if my mom books my cruise for me, I still get the points. Whereas like a hotel, she gets the, those nights under her name versus, on a cruise, I actually get that status. So even if you have a kid, like those kids still get status. It pretty much lasts their entire life. And that's really cool that, if you are a family, you get to benefit from your parents' status. They don't want to separate you because there are a lot of things like lounges and things like that you could get access to with the higher tiers. And, they try to keep you under that same family loyalty status. So that is something to definitely take into consideration, that the points don't expire. They last your entire life. And it's really a nice thing to kind of take into consideration when booking a cruise.
Yeah, and going off of that point too, Frank, like you said, the nice thing, since they don't expire, when you are kind of going down, let's say you do a couple Carnival cruises in a row, and then next year, like, all right, I want to do it like Norwegian or try some other lines. Like you said, you're not losing that Carnival status or anything. So, like you said, if you go back, you'll continue to get the current level you're at and the perks that you were given. Yeah, Frank. So I think we'll just start right at the top with Royal, right? So like we said, we're just going to kind of go down some of these different cruise lines and some of the perks you can get based on the different levels. And like we said, you're most connected with Royal, right? I mean, like you're like we said, you're real far along with their perk and loyalty system. So kind of just give us an overview of what they're offering.
Yeah, so they have 6 different tiers of loyalty. You start, obviously with gold, and that's kind of your first cruise. But once you get to the top, Pinnacle, you got so many perks, and that's probably never. I may not ever get there, right? That's 700 nights. It's a long ways off. Maybe I'll get Diamond Plus. But once you hit 80 nights, which is Diamond, which is what I'm currently at, that's when the perks really start to kick in. The biggest one that everyone talks about is the 4 free drinks a day. That is like, I looked at all of these when we were putting these notes together for today's podcast, and that is probably one of the best perks out there, right? So it is really, really nice, and that's per person. So like even before Scotty and I got married, sorry to anyone that works for Royal, don't tell them, but like I kind of just said she was my partner, and they gave her the 4 free drinks a day. So there's things that you can do to kind of like, if you're like, hey, maybe we're not married, but we're in the same household, you can extend those perks to someone else, which is, that's huge, right? That's 8 drinks a day that you can save pretty much getting a package. So that's really nice. They also give you free Wi-Fi for 24 hours. You get access to the lounge. So there's like a diamond lounge that they have on their ship. So you can grab free specialty coffees and hors d'oeuvres and continental breakfast. And, the way that you earn points for Royal is 1 night is 1 point. If you sail by yourself, that's double. And if you sail in a suite, then that is also double. If you're solo in a suite, you get triple. So there are ways to really accrue the points fast. But yeah, as you kind of grow in the program, you can get up to 6 free drinks a day if you're Pinnacle. Obviously, there's things like free laundry you get, suite lounge access, and then like the biggest one is once you hit 700, you start to see like those gold pins that are like personalized. I think those people, like once you hit 700 points, like they're so proud to wear their little pins around. I would be too, because then it tells the crew like, you better treat me like a king because I've spent so many nights on this cruise. But yeah, that's probably, I would say that's a good summary. There's a lot of different things like discounts. Like I think I get like $150 off a balcony room on Royal. So there's like smaller little things that along the way. They put like free waters in your room and stuff like that. But the big ones are definitely the drinks and the lounge access, I'd say.
Yeah, that's awesome, Frank. Hopefully I get to the point someday with Royal where I can have some of those free drinks and not have to get a drink package either. But like I said, hopefully one day I'll get there. So moving on to Carnival now. Carnival has 5 different tiers of loyalty, right? And I think right now I'm gold with Carnival. And kind of your first couple tiers, you're getting things like you said, the free water bottles, the specific pins, which I think are specific to the ship or were at one point. And then you also get like a free gift once you get to a certain level. I think right now it's like a VIFP fanny pack. Yeah, I think for a while it was like like those little koozie like slap-on things. I think my dad has a couple of those. But yeah, I'll have to check in with him because they're actually going on a cruise in a couple months. I'll have to see what he gets. But once you get to the platinum level, which is 75 nights, this is where you kind of really start to get a lot of the extra stuff like priority check-in. They'll do like special parties with complimentary drinks, free laundry service, priority guest services lines, priority dining reservations. So like we said, that's where a lot of stuff really takes off. I think the level I'm at, I think you get a free like drink on the last night. That they've kind of changed it out over the years. Now you can really use it anywhere, and I think it's the whole day now. It used to be like you
like after 5 p.m. right?
5 p.m. or something. But that's something they've expanded to kind of just give you the whole day. So I'm not getting my 4 drinks a day, but I guess 1 free drink will do. Maybe Carnival will expand that someday.
I'm sure they will. I think that they'll continue to kind of grow, and I think Royal's working on their program. So I think that's a good disclaimer, though, is like I expect that these will continue to evolve. especially one of the ones we have coming up, will definitely continue to evolve. But yeah, Michael, maybe one day you'll kind of get to that top service with the priority guest services line.
Well, and just kind of one last note with Carnival. I mean, like you said, these things can change over time. And that's one thing, once COVID hit, they kind of changed one of the perks where you got like $10 in free casino play. I forget what it was beforehand, but they, like I said, COVID hit, they kind of changed it up, and now they finally just removed that. And I mean, obviously now people are all upset, yada yada. I don't know. Like you said, you got to know at these programs, anything can change at any time.
So Norwegian obviously had to hit them in the top 3, one of the biggest cruise lines out of the U.S. Their Latitude program has 7 tiers, bronze through ambassador. So bronze is the lowest, ambassador is the highest. And their best perks really start around 75 points, which is their platinum level. If you are platinum, you get free dinner for 2 and a bottle of wine, which is a really nice perk. You get complimentary room upgrades, special gifts on board that they called out. And then they've got the standard stuff like cruise discounts and there's a bunch of different things, but I just wanted to call out that those are kind of their bigger ones. And then once you get to the top level, which is their 700 nights, you do get a free cruise, which is pretty cool. So I do like the programs that have like kind of something you can shoot for, like, okay, if I cruise 700 nights I get a free cruise. They definitely deserve one at that point. But yeah, I think that is a pretty good perk, right?
Yeah, I agree. Now, kind of changing it up here, we had to talk Virgin, right? Because like we said, this is a new cruise line. And like we said, with these loyalty programs, I mean, they started right from the start, right? I mean, they had to kind of figure out how they were going to kind of get loyalty to their cruise line. And I mean, obviously, you've seen with some of the different promotions and things that they offer, like their next Virgin voyages on the ship. So afterwards, it's been fluctuating, right, over the past couple years, and that's what we're kind of seeing with their new program, because unlike the first 3 we talked about, it's not based on the number of nights you've actually sailed, but the number of voyages you've sailed with them. So right now, once you hit 3 voyages sailed with them, you start to earn perks like free specialty coffees each day, free laundry service, exclusive cocktail events, etc. I mean, like we said, it's growing, and it'll be interesting to see how they really continue to adapt this over time. Because like one thing, for example, we saw like the bar tab, right? When we first started talking Virgin last year, that was kind of like one of the big draw-ins, right? Was that bar tab money you got, and then they really cut it all away. And now I just saw recently that they're running smaller bar tab promotions again. So like you said, a new cruise line, you really have the freedom to really change and do things as you want. Like you said, hopefully try and get people to become loyal to your cruise line. Yeah.
No, it's a good point. I mean, they have ultimate fun in this, that they can kind of look at what other lines are doing, what's working, and they can shake things up. I imagine that at some point in a higher tier, they're going to start adding free bar tab to their loyalty program. Like, why not, right? It seems like a pretty easy thing. So I would expect that they're going to follow somewhat of what Carnival and Royal are doing with the free drinks, that they would probably add some of that in the future. So pretty cool. So the next one is Celebrity. So Celebrity's Captain's Club is set up a little bit differently. So the first thing I looked at was their top tier, and it was like 3,000 plus. And I was like, no, there's no way someone is like cruising 3,000 nights. So once I dug into it a little bit more, I saw that like with Celebrity, based on the room that you book, you get more points. So like the interior ocean view room is like 2 points. And then once you get up to, I think it's like the, like one of the suites, iconic suites or something, you get 24 points per night. So like, that's a huge difference, right? Like that seems a lot easier to get a higher status. You only need to book, a couple of those rooms and then you get a higher tier. But and I do like this, right? I think that is one way that they are rewarding their top spenders, versus like Royal, it doesn't really matter. Like, I guess the suites are double, but that's not a huge difference between like the person who books the interior versus the suite. So this is very, very, it's very distinguishing between, if you just spend a lot of money, you're going to get up there higher, which is similar to like the airlines, right? If you book first class, you get more mileage and bonuses than you do if you book basic economy or economy. So I think it's kind of cool. The real perks for Celebrity start around 150 points, which is like private cocktail hour that they have. They have laundry service for free. They do like an exclusive continental breakfast. They have discounts to their Wi-Fi and drink package. They actually do give you access to like what they call like their Persian garden, which is where they have like their sauna and steam room and their spa, which is really cool. And I think that's on like 9 of their ships. So overall, Celebrity, seems pretty good. Compared to the other cruise line, I would say it's pretty much on par with what you can expect for a loyalty program.
The next cruise line we have to talk about now is Princess, right? So another premium line kind of next to Celebrity Carnival's version of it. And here you have 4 different tier levels, right? You got Gold, Ruby, Platinum, and Elite. And the interesting thing with here is, like we said, how like Carnival, Royal, and Norwegian, it was based on the number of days sailed, and Virgin was the number of cruises. They actually do a combination here. So, like, for example, Gold is just after you complete your first cruise, and obviously you're not getting too much here, but you get things like the Circle's savings account and some early access to new itineraries when they drop. But then once you hit Ruby, which is either 3 cruises or 30 days of cruising, like you said, you get a little bit more now. You're getting things like vacation protection. So they have like 100% cancellation benefit, some sickness benefits, some medical expense stuff. And then you also get access to the Captain Circle help desk phone line. And then once you hit Platinum, this is where you're really starting to get a good amount of some of the extra benefits. So this is 5 cruises or 50 days cruised. You're getting things like 50% off your Wi-Fi, early access to dining reservations, 10% off spa treatments, and 10% off the photo gallery, and then access to a special Platinum and an Elite lounge. And then Elite is when you hit either 15 cruises or 150 days. And here, like, once again, you're getting some extra money savings, 10% off and stuff like the shops on the ship, 10% off shore excursions. But then you're also getting things like a complimentary wine tasting event and a complimentary minibar set up in your room. And then you also get things like priority disembarkation for your different excursions you have, and then also priority disembarkation on disembarkation day, and then some free laundry services. So, I mean, overall, I mean, like I said, once you kind of hit that Platinum level, you're really starting to get a lot of benefits here. And I mean, interesting that they only have 4 tiers. I feel like this is one of the smaller ones that we've talked about so far. But like you said, still a good amount to offer to you.
Yeah, I personally like the mini bar in the room. I think that's a good one. I think that all the cruise lines should bring that one back. Now, the last one that I wanted to cover was Disney, right? So Disney, honestly, might be the worst out of all of these. They didn't have like a ton of perks when I looked at their program, but after you hit 25 sailings, which I felt like was a lot, that's when the big perks kick in. You get a free dinner at Palo or Palo Steakhouse, a free photo package. But I think that like maybe there's some other discounts that you get like along the way just from staying loyal that they're not advertising. So it is tough for us to like read into it and see like maybe like they reward the top tiers with a really good discount for coming back. But like based on what they actually have posted for their loyalty program, it doesn't really seem like much, which does kind of seem on par for Disney because they know the people are going to book it regardless. But so now just kind of as a recap, our final thoughts, right? Like leave you with something to kind of make the decision for yourself, right? Like, is it worth it to stay loyal? Is it worth it to not stay loyal to a particular brand in terms of cruising? And yeah, you can kind of make the decision on your own, based on these thoughts that we have. And maybe some people are going to fall in the middle with where like, I might stay loyal for a few years and then I might switch. But we'll kind of go through the pros and cons with that. And then, yeah, we'll leave you with the decision to make there. But in terms of staying loyal, right? So the biggest kind of perks that we saw when we looked at these lists, the reasons why I would stay loyal is the discounts on the cruise itself, right? So getting some discounts, whether that's a free cruise at the top or, along the way, getting $150 off. That's substantial, right? Like I'm getting $150 off. The next person might not be on a Royal Caribbean cruise, and that's real money, right? That is real money, and haven't had to do that much to get that. So that is a real benefit there. The next one is kind of like a summarization of all the things we've already listed, but the benefits on board, right? So free drinks, better customer service, private lounges, free gifts, priority boarding and disembarkation. Like those benefits to some people are valuable. If you just it's kind of like hotels. If you keep going to like different hotel chains, you could be just putting that all in the same basket and then maybe get some extra perks, towards the end, or free night stays, right? So similar to that, there are some things that come along with it with cruise lines, like we mentioned, that you could be leaving on the table if you cruise a lot and you're just kind of spreading yourself across all the different cruise lines. The next one is familiarity, right? So being able to know what you're getting yourself into. I think for myself going on Virgin, and maybe Michael, you feel like this way too with MSC, like you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Like when you go on a Carnival ship, you probably know exactly like what to expect, right? Like what's the food going to be like what's going to be on the menus, what's the service going to be like? Obviously you can listen to this podcast. There's a lot of blogs out there. You can try to read up on it, but at the end of the day, you're walking into a situation where you're a little bit less comfortable, right? So the reason why you would stay loyal in this case is just to be comfortable and know that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Maybe even the ship layouts, right? A lot of these ships for certain lines are going to feel pretty similar. So you're going to get on board and most of the venues are going to be in around the same spot or laid out similarly, right? So that is something to take into consideration. And then the last one is the reciprocal perks that you could be getting. So I know with Royal and Celebrity, they're actually working on this right now to make it even better, but you can use your Royal Caribbean status to get some perks on Celebrity and vice versa. This is not like a major thing for most people, but it is something to think about, that if maybe you start with Royal when you have kids and when you have a family, and then, down the road you progress into doing more of a adult-centric kind of vacation and you go more towards a Celebrity, that is something to consider when trying to pick which company you want to stay loyal to. So yeah, those are kind of the reasons why I would probably stay loyal versus trying different cruise lines.
Yeah, and going off that last point you made too, Frank, I mean, one cool thing that I know, like you said, with my upcoming MSC cruise is I know right now MSC is currently status matching. So you can, I mean, they have a long list, and it's not just cruise lines. Like they have, different hotel brands and stuff like that, where based on the level of status you have, it can bump you up to a later level at MSC. So I think for me, I status matched my Carnival Gold, and I think it brought me to like their second level. So yeah, just another thing to be looking out for when you do try different cruise lines. So now kind of going off the other, like we said, reasons not to stay loyal when it comes to trying different cruise lines out there. The first thing we notice is, some lines experience some different ports of calls. And this is one thing like we've seen with Norwegian. I mean, like we've talked about in the past, like they do a lot of African cruises up and down the coastlines of Africa and some different cruise lines in South America, which, you don't often see Carnival or Royal or some of these other lines actually doing. So like you said, I mean, if there's a different port of call that you want to see that your typical cruise line you sail may not sail, I mean, like we said, that's one reason to go try a different line. Another reason, experiencing just new ships in general, right? I mean, different classes of ships from different cruise lines are going to have, like we said, all different features, restaurants on the ship, bars. And like we said, I mean, you take the newest Royal or the newest Celebrity, newest Carnival, newest Norwegian. I mean, they're all going to have all different types of activities and things to do on it. So especially like if you have like a family and want to go experience just different things instead of doing like the same activities on the different ships, could be another great reason to, like we said, go try out different cruise lines. And then lastly, like we often say on this podcast, price can play a big part in any cruise you book. I mean, whether it's the lines just offering different sales at the time that the prices are so low, if you kind of just stay loyal to a cruise line, I mean, the price may be higher for a certain sailing, and you don't really want to pigeonhole yourself into just being stuck to that one line. Like you said, if you can save hundreds of dollars somewhere else, maybe still do the same itinerary. I mean, one thing we were talking about beforehand is like Alaska, right? I mean, our trip next year, we've been talking about how we're sailing Royal. And I mean, you have Princess out there, and Princess is like known to be one of the most popular lines sailing Alaska. And it can often be seen as a little bit cheaper, but you also kind of have to balance it out. Well, I mean, those ships are a little older versus, like we said, we're doing Quantum of the Seas, which is a newer class. I mean, it's a bigger ship and has a lot more to it. So yeah, like we said, potential just money savings out there for trying out different lines at the time.
Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode. We really hope that you enjoyed this, whether you learned something new about a cruise line loyalty program or just gave you a little bit of food for thought on your strategy and approach, whether that's, choosing a cruise line because you've been, sailing with them for many, many years, or just, continuing to try a bunch of new cruise lines and gain a bunch of new experiences on ships and different itineraries and things like that. So we're really, really excited about what the next couple of months have in terms of the podcast content. So stick around. We've got a lot of guests lined up to come on. We've also got a lot of different, cruises coming up for Michael and I that we're excited to provide perspectives on. So make sure that you follow us on Instagram. Make sure you follow us on YouTube as well at Cruise Conversations Podcast. You can hit the subscribe button and stay up to date. We're actually working, like I said, on a lot of different vlogs and videos and content just from Utopia of the Seas, and then we'll have Icon and MSC and Utopia again. So we've got a lot of things coming up over the next 3 months. It's a really, really exciting time. Also, if you are interested in booking your next cruise, Michael and I would love to help you with that. You can shoot us a text at 704-313-8556. We'll help you make sure you get the best price, but also add on a bunch of onboard credit and things that we can, just to say thank you for using us. Or you can submit a jot form, which will be in the description of this episode below. We'll get back to you within a couple of days. But hey, this has been a really fun topic. Make sure that you come back, and we will see you here next Wednesday.